Week 12 of the college football schedule, headlined by Alabama hosting Oklahoma as 6-point favorites here. That's the game we will break down for you this week. We will talk about what to bet for this game, Alabama's title shot, Ty Simpson's Heisman shot, OU's path to the playoffs, and much, much more. Welcome to the channel. Hit that thumbs up button. Hit that subscribe button. We are gunning for 30,000 before the end of 2025, so every little bit helps. Ninja here with Josie Costigan. Let's get into it here, Josie. Sort of feels like that Florida State loss is a distant memory now. Bama has rattled off 8 straight wins, 4 against ranked opponents, but none have been real blowouts. Is this team a legit national championship contender? 7-1 now at DraftKings at the moment. What are your thoughts on Bama?
Yeah, that week 1 loss to Florida feels like a lifetime ago, like almost like a fever dream. Since then, I think Alabama's been really steady, maybe not flashy, but they're in control. And they've covered in every home game this season, all which had them favored by double digits. You know, they might not be steamrolling teams in that classic way that Bama does, but I think that's kind of the point, you know, like they're winning with a type of discipline and fight that we don't normally see from this program. And, you know, they also have a quarterback who just doesn't make a lot of mistakes, which is, you know, an added bonus. So, yeah, I think they're absolutely a national title contender, especially this year when everything's kind of up in the air. Maybe they're not that vintage version, you know, that drops 50 points every week, but I think they're built for a playoff grind, which is kind of scary.
Yeah, and perfect segue to my next point, which is about that quarterback that doesn't really make mistakes. Ty Simpson sitting third on the Heisman odds board right now going into the week, plus 450, and has been lights out basically all season. Like, you know, over 2,400 passing yards, the 21 TDs, just the one pick, which happened against Vanderbilt. What do you think about Ty Simpson at that price for the Heisman? And would you back him ahead of this matchup with OU?
Yeah, I think the odds make sense. Again, especially this season, everything seems so up in the air. But I think he's been really efficient all year. I haven't really seen that like O game from him yet that you know has made me weary of him. Like you said, 21 touchdowns to 1 pick, and he's done it against some really solid defenses, playing under an elite program in a really well-rounded conference too. So those strength of opponents always, you know, help. And like I said, he navigated that really intimidating stretch of Georgia, Vandy, Missouri, and Tennessee really well, which says something. However, that said, I wouldn't lock in on him just yet. You know, for me, while the stats are strong, I think there's a question of that signature standout moment. He hasn't had any like dominant blow-up game compared to some of these past Heisman winners. And I also think Alabama's run game is a bit bleak. So if the offense is a little too one-dimensional, I think Heisman voters might hesitate giving him the trophy.
And speaking of the Heisman, you know, at the beginning of the season, John Mateer was the name that was in that conversation. He started the season on fire. You think back to, you know, the wins against Michigan, the win against Auburn. But he's just been sort of okay after coming back from that injury. Do you think maybe he came back a little bit too soon? And should that worry potentially OU backers in this game?
Yeah, I swear it was like the headlines were, you know, he had surgery and then like a week later the headlines were like, he's back. And it's like, what's happening? But so I think, yeah, it is fair to wonder if he did rush back a little bit. You know, early in the year, he looked really sharp and confident, but, you know, it doesn't look like he really regained his rhythm, whether that's, you know, his physical health or just kind of losing connection with his receivers in that stint where he was off the field this week. You really can't be affording those empty drives, especially in Tuscaloosa. So if you're backing Oklahoma, I think it is a concern because, you know, the Sooners defense can keep him in for a while, but at some point, Mateer has to make those plays. And lately, he just like hasn't looked like he's the same guy who opened the season.
OU still has a pathway to the playoffs, and it begins with a win here at Bama. This is basically a playoff game for Oklahoma. They win this, you know, then they have a tough one against Mizzou, and then they finish against LSU. Can you see this team winning out and booking a trip to the playoff?
I mean, statistically, it's, I guess, a little possible. But, you know, it's a long shot. For Oklahoma, I think everything starts with this game. If they can somehow walk out of Tuscaloosa with a win, I think, yeah, that path obviously opens up. They'd have the momentum, strength of schedule, and a defense, again, good enough to keep them in every game. But the issue is the offense, okay? So, you know, Mateer's injury just haven't looked like a playoff caliber unit to me. And you can't lean too heavily on your defense. And while that's worked against some opponents, That's a really tough game plan to try to survive against, teams like Alabama this week or, Georgia come the CFP if they even get that far. So I'd like to say, no, the door isn't completely shut. I'll stay optimistic for them, but I think they have to play their best football starting Saturday. And realistically, though, I think Alabama is going to end this conversation before it even gets started.
Folks, I will drop a link down below for you guys to check out Prop Professor, and you can get it at 50% off for the first month. This app drops hundreds of plus EV bets every single day, giving you a real shot at finding long-term profit. There are still some plus EV plays available for this game, over 9.5 in the first quarter, just around 1% plus EV, minus 120 at BetMGM. Just a sample of what Prop Professor offers its users. You can sort through plays across college football, across the NFL, the NBA, and plenty more, all backed by data. It's got tools for arbitrage betting. It's got a fantasy optimizer, so you can cover all of your angles. And if you want to give it a try, use the promo code OddsShark50 at checkout, 50% off for that first month. OddsShark computer picking OU to cover, and the score going over the total here, 31.6 OU to 29 for Alabama. That's the OddsShark computer. Josie, you're up. What do you say for this one? What's your favorite bet?
Well, I'm going the opposite here. I'm going to play Alabama at minus 5.5 and the under at 46.5. I just think Alabama's defense has been really strong at home, 5 straight covers, and they've held opponents to under 20 points in 4 of those. Again, Ty Simpson, really don't see him making any mistakes, and ball security is huge in a game like this, especially when you have an Oklahoma defense that's forced over 10 turnovers in its last 3 games. And again, on the other side of the ball, just don't think John Mateer is up to that level on Saturday. Facing a top 10 defense on the road is a brutal spot for him to try to find his rhythm anyways. I think Oklahoma's defense could keep this competitive early, but over 4 quarters, the Sooners are a team that can get a touchdown up quick in the first quarter, but then are barely averaging 3 points in the fourth. So that kind of shows you that their momentum just kind of, it's on a downward spiral as the game progresses. Another really interesting note, though, at home, Alabama's averaging over 30 seconds per play and have the ball in their possession for nearly 32 minutes. So that's why I'm kind of trending towards the under. So just expect the Tide to have the ball a lot in their hands and expect them to take their time with it and really orchestrate this game.